Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And check out that eye, that's exactly what we want to see. Woo, look at that panel, baby. And that, as they say, is that. This is the end of the road, Galvatron. I don't know why I say that every time I see this cover. Oh, I know why. Because the final issue is called End of the Road, and we have Galvatron on this cover. I am the Uncanny Omar. Today on Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, I'm going to give you my overview of the Transformers Compendium Volume 2 from Image Comics. So let's go ahead and take a look at this together. Okay, before going any further, a big thank you to the folks at Skybound for sending us a copy of this compendium. This is the direct market compendium. This is the one that is supplied by Jim Lee and comes from issue number 67. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover that is supplied by Daniel Warren Johnson. That's the one that's going to be available everywhere. But everything is the same besides that cover. So let's shift the focus back to this. Transformers Compendium 2, this image of Galvatron by Jim Lee. The war is over and the Decepticons have won. Well, in that issue. Budiansky, Furman, Delbo, Senior, and Wildman right here. Furman, that's right, coming off of those UK books. The Image logo. The Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo here with the Decepticon logo. And then the Compendium Volume 2, Budiansky, Furman, Delbo, Senior, and Wildman. And is this the end of the Transformers? Yeah, it sort of was for a while. Here's your ISBN, the Skybound logo, the Image logo, and the Hasbro logo. The book retails for $64.99. Now this, I've done a reading order on. As a matter of fact, the stories that you're going to find in here are found through volumes 4, 5, 6, and 7. Some of 4, but definitely all of 5, 6, and 7. And I'll do a comparison with these right here, these releases. Those are the IDW releases. But let's look at the spine again. In the back, this is a compendium, meaning that it is a soft cover. No dust jacket, and it's not a hardcover. And the dimensions are that of a single issue. So let's go ahead and open it up and talk about the stories found in here for Transformers during this era of Marvel Comics. Okay, let's go ahead and open this big compendium up. The Transformers Compendium 2. Over here are the credits. Bob Budiansky, Simon Furman, Ralph Macchio as the writers, and you have pencilers like José Delbo, Jim Fern, Andrew Wildman, Don Perlin, and Geoff Senior. The inkers like Dave Hunt, Danny Bulinati, and Marie Severin, like legendary inkers here. Bob Lewis, Dwayne Turner, Hari Candelario. Colorists down here, Nel Yomtov, Zara Mozov, and Chia-Chi Wang. And then your letterers like Bill Oakley and Rick Parker. And then you have credits for the covers. And over here, the digital remastering. And, oh, it's good to see Michael Keller and illustrations right here. And then, of course, the cover artists. So we kick it off with issue number 47. Collected in this compendium is the Transformers 47 through 80, the Transformers the Movie 1 through 3, and the Transformers Generation 2 1 through 12. The book has a total of 1,168 pages and retails for $64.99. And we kick it off with this series, or I guess this storyline, with issue number 47, that is called the Underbase saga. And it definitely has a an infamous popularity, because this is around the time when Bob Budiansky was, I think, wrapping up a lot of his storylines and just wanted to get rid of a lot of characters. So what he does is introduce the notion that perhaps there was this thing called the Underbase that had existed previous to the Transformers issue number 1. So it seems like Optimus Prime and Megatron had fought over something called the Underbase. And this is the first time they have brought it up, but there are flashbacks of it through here. And we learn through these issues that it's the most powerful force in the universe. And whoever ends up wielding it can control the universe. And of course, who wants it more than the Decepticons? And who more so than issue number 50 is one of my personal favorites. I don't know how people feel about it, but I love me some Starscream, especially when he gets super powerful. And we have Buster with Nikki during this time, and then we'll have his brother Spike later on. But yes, this cover right here, I was hoping that they would use this cover for the main story. This is the, I think this is José Delbo that does the cover here. But a lot of characters end up dying through this particular Underbase story. So we move on to the next story arc, again featuring more and more characters that you're being introduced for the first time to. It's kind of crazy just how it was not really keeping up with the TV continuity, but more so keeping up with the toys. And there's so many more characters that appear through here than the toys. And that, I think that goes without saying, that the continuity here in the Transformers Marvel comics are a lot different than the continuity in the TV show. The movie adaptation is the one exception, because they were doing their own thing through these pages. Everybody was kind of doing its own thing. Like during this story arc, Spike Witwicky ends up quitting his role as the head of Fortress Maximus. And we have a lot of introductions here of like pretenders. We have a lot of introductions in this story arc right here of characters that will become a big part later on. But the Pretenders and the Pretender Beasts are a huge addition to the storyline. And then the Micromasters. And Micromasters, of course, was a toy line that they were actually debuting during this particular time. And we get, I think this is the next story arc right here, where Megatron ends up returning and then ends up manipulating Ratchet. So characters do come back through here. Characters die and come back. I guess minor spoilers for what happened previously, but this is Simon Furman that's about to take over. I'm pretty sure people know what his role is. But, for example, Starscream ends up getting killed in a previous storyline, and Megatron manipulates Ratchet into bringing him back as a pretender, because there was a Starscream pretender toy. So again, it was kind of filling in those particular roles. By issue, love this cover. It's one of my favorite covers. I believe it's with issue 56 that Simon Furman takes over. It's with the Megatron Ratchet story. Yeah, this is the first story, meaning that issue 55 wraps up a lot of the Bob Budiansky stories, and he ends up leaving the book. And now we have Simon Furman taking over. José Delbo stays on the title for a while, and then we have his Marvel UK buddy, Andrew Wildman, coming on board and taking over as the artist. So it's always good to see the Dinobots through here. Again, it's a different version of the Dinobots. These guys are actually smart. As a matter of fact, Grimlock for a while was the leader. We have the first appearance of a big character through here. Immediately when Simon Furman takes over the book, you could tell that the toys were forcing them to add characters like the Pretenders. But we have important characters like Bludgeon that appears through here for the first time, or Octopunch, and characters that will go on all the way through the end of the Transformers 80 issues. And then we have the coming of Unicron. We have the Matrix Quest story, which to a lot of us, the Matrix Quest that starts off, I think, with issue number 62, is probably one of the greatest stories that Simon Furman told during his time on Transformers. He makes a lot of these lesser-known characters into really popular characters within the fandom. So it is a story for the search across the universe for something called the Creation Matrix. And you have Thunderwing, who again, popularized because of this comic book right here. You have that character that ends up making a lot of his moves, because he's kind of been playing a little bit behind the scenes on Optimus Prime. And during this time, Optimus Prime is a Power Master too. And we have some more Pretenders, and we're not going to go through each and every one of these. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea as to what the artwork looks like and what the stories are about. Now you have Geoff Senior taking over the book, and he's actually taken over the book for a while. There's that famous Jim Lee cover. I think that's the only one that he did throughout the series, showcasing Galvatron. So there is a big fight between Galvatron and Megatron through here, because they're two different characters. And yes, you still have a lot of the characters appearing through here, those human characters like Circuit Breaker that appeared previously in these stories. So you have Unicron that ends up getting the help of Galvatron. They rebuild Megatron. Again, characters die left and right. You have the characters of the Neo Knights that were created through the Transformers series. And I want to say the Neo Knights, those are characters with Circuit Breaker that were going to go on and spin off into their own series. Maybe they did in the UK. I can't remember. And then you have Andrew Wildman coming on board. Now, the last few issues of the Transformers, mainly issues like 73 all the way to 80, we're still introducing new characters like Treadshot and Quake appear through here. We have the first appearance of Rodimus Prime through here. But what ends up happening is that a lot of characters now, since the series is coming to an end with issue number 80, are going to die. Like, lots of fan favorites are going to end up dying. And they ain't no coming back from this. Like, this is the last hurrah for Transformers. And Simon Furman kind of saw the writing on the wall that, at least in the US, the series was about to come to an end. And you have Unicron. Unicron's a character that they've been building up for a while. He's not just a character that appears like in the movie, where he just kind of comes out of nowhere. This is one of my favorite issues right here, issue number 75, where it says the end or the beginning. And man, just look at that double page spread. So awesome, of Unicron physically eating a planet. We're introduced to the concept of Primus through here, that perhaps the Cybertronian planet is not just a planet, it could be something else, and Primus has something to do with that. But this is the Transformers scattering around. Like, you have the forces of the Autobots and the Decepticons teaming up against Unicron. They're trying to put a stop to him. You have Shockwave and Starscream making decisions to just end up leaving, and you have characters like BlackRock and the Neo Knights also come in and help out against this fight with Unicron. So alliances are formed because of a big threat like him. So very similar to the movie, but a little bit more dramatic through here. This is the return of Grimlock, where apparently this is something that I think Simon Furman first introduced the concept of, was that Grimlock claims that the Autobot and the Decepticon war that has been going on for a long time is actually caused by genetics. That there wasn't like some big notable thing that happened, but it's actually the genetics that's fused into their bodies that has caused this huge fight. And there's a famous issue in here with Megatron and Ratchet, and the big fight between Megatron and Galvatron, the last Autobot right here. So the last Autobot is Spike Witwicky finding himself in the wreckage of the Ark right here. And he's been called there because he was at one time so connected to all these characters, but he's been called there by Fortress Maximus, who of course was his old partner. And now it's up to him to help out and maybe restore the Autobots, because there's a battle going on in Cybertron, as you probably saw a little bit earlier through here. And then we get the final issue. Final issue is one of my favorite little jokes, even though it's not much of a joke. Number 80 in a 4-issue limited series. You remember how issue number 1 was number 1 in a 4-issue limited series? Well, the joke is that the final issue, number 80 in a 4-issue limited series, what made it on the cover. And this is Simon Furman and Andrew Wildman, and oh my gosh, lots of characters die through here. It was pretty much the final hurrah for a lot of these Transformer characters. And as a matter of fact, we do get a letter page here where Simon Furman says farewell to the readers, and also hinting that perhaps the story may continue in the Marvel UK comics. Then we get the movie app. So after issue 80 is where they put the movie adaptation. The movie adaptation, again, is in continuity with the animated series, not the comics. There are a few things that change, such as the dialogue or the angles, but the story is basically the same there after the Matrix. The Matrix looking a little bit different through here too. One of the biggest changes that you may like, that I actually appreciate, as Ultra Magnus is trying to open up the Matrix, this is the way it was written in the script of the movie, that he was quartered by the Seekers. That was something I learned probably in my 20s about the Transformers movie. Whenever Ultra Magnus dies in the movie, he's not supposed to be getting shot, but the script called for him to be quartered, and they had to reanimate it. That's why whenever you see the Seekers, the sweeps, actually shoot him, they look like ropes. It doesn't look like laser beams coming out of them. And that was because the script called for him to be quartered, but it was deemed too violent, so they changed it. But in the comic book adaptation, it's pretty cool that they kept it with that. And again, it is just like the movie. Just some changes here and there. And then we get, of course, Transformers Generation 2. And Generation 2 is a big deal because it was a few years after the first 80 issues were said and done, and Transformers didn't even have a TV show. So what it does is it brings the characters back to Earth. But what ends up happening is that this time around, when Megatron returns, he ends up getting rebuilt by Cobra. So these issues really, I love the way, absolutely love the way that Sideswipe looks in Gen 2. There was a toy line called Generation 2, and there wasn't an animated series, but they did bring back the Transformers on television with these horrible, like, swipes of CG to add to, like, the commercial breaks. I do love the reimagining of Megatron. So, I guess, yes, there is a toy line. The most important thing that comes out of this series is the introduction of this character, Jyaxus, who appears through this first issue right here. So, this series, it only lasted 12 issues, and they're all collected in here. It really involves Cobra heavily. And then, of course, G.I. Joe. But this is the big fight between Autobots and Decepticons. The war has reignited. And then we have the threat of something called the Swarm. And now these enemies have to ally with each other to try to defeat this thing called the Swarm. And that's practically really what this is. But it is the return of Simon Furman to the comic books. So I think it was after the UK series. I can't wait to see what the actual final product looks like whenever we get the box sets, how they're going to map them, because in my head I know I had it mapped a certain way, so I'm curious how they're going to map it. And Jyax is playing a huge important part through here, and big fan of Megatron and the way that he looked. Again, this stuff has been collected in trade paperback. As far as the extras, there's really no extras except two. This right here is the gatefold cover to issue number 1, and it is by Derek Yanger. And then we have this pinup from issue 73 by Paul Cooperberg. And then ads for other compendiums, and then of course the new Energon universe. So let's talk about the build of the book. 1168 pages. It is glued binding and printed in this newsprint type of paper stock. So what I want to do is come back to issue number 47 and compare it to the IDW Classics release. So they are using the same masters as the Classics, but it is printed on different paper stock. This gives it more of a retro feel to it, because this feels like comic book paper stock that was coming out at the time, whereas this is printed in a thick matte paper stock. So the colors do look a little bit different. For some reason, this looks a little bit more restored than over here. This looks a little bit more flawed, but that's not the case because it's the exact same masters. It's just a different paper stock that absorbs the colors and, of course, the the contrast a little bit different. But this kind of gives you an idea. Both of them are glue binding, so they're going to lay over the same way. And speaking of that, oh, the Seacons. I forgot to mention they were through here too. As far as the double page spreads, because there are quite a number, to kind of give you an idea as to what they look like. When you get here, you can see that there is gutter loss, and that's due to the glued binding. But they do look a little bit better as you get through the middle, or about a third into the book. But that is Transformers Compendium Volume 2. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this compendium, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking this up, if you are waiting for the box set, or if you're hoping one day somebody will give us a big omnibus edition of this. But that is it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have memories of these comics as well. Oh my gosh, this brought back so many childhood memories. But that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.